is Dan Dulac. I'm Vice President of Solutions Strategy at Extreme Networks. We're going to spend the next few minutes talking about the struggle, what I call the brains behind the smart hospital, and what those brains are and some efficiencies and operational efficiencies that IoT brings to a smart hospital, but some of the growing pains that we're realizing in the healthcare industry and really all industries around the world, but really healthcare is at the cutting edge of the IoT adoption. And we're going to share some insights into the challenges, and then more importantly, how do we get ahead of those challenges and address the challenges so that we can really drive smart hospital adoption. Let's first take a look at a couple of different perspectives, really some of the key drivers behind why is technology coming in so hard and fast really into the healthcare industry. Pretty straightforward here from a couple of analyst perspectives. We'll start with ZK Research just around obviously regulatory, risk, security, confidentiality, competitive pressures are all taking cost out of operations, are really putting a lot of pressures on organizations. And technology is a key way that we can address in meeting some of these and mitigating risk, improving operational efficiencies while driving better patient outcome. So we're going to talk about how we believe technology can help us achieve to that end. Situational awareness is a term I hear a lot, I use a lot as it relates to how IoT and the demands of IoT really come to place within the healthcare environment. This is a couple of comments from Gartner and other analysts we work with quite a bit, in addition to talking with many of our healthcare clients around the world. But really, the whole concept behind situational awareness is some technology in the industry. In the technology industry, you may have heard artificial intelligence or machine learning. That's really another description for situational awareness. How do we use technology to start to correlate situations so that we can take automated response, right? So we don't have to leverage human intellect to do it. We can actually have software or a machine do that for us. So some pretty interesting perspectives here. So let's talk about, given some of the challenges and the drivers, let's talk about some of the strategies we really should look at employing when we start thinking about how do we make our hospitals smarter? How do we capitalize on the technology that's here today, but that's also coming in the very near future? The first is obviously none of this works without the infrastructure, the wired and wireless infrastructure. This is the thread, if you will, that ties all of these technologies together. If there's a problem with the network, there's a cascade of problems that will occur. One of the challenges, just with any application or any industry in the world, and certainly in healthcare as well, is anytime there's a problem with technology, who takes the blame? Who's at fault? Who's the first person you blame when all of a sudden your mobile device isn't behaving as it should? The app isn't behaving as it should. The EMR system isn't as responsive as it normally is on a day-to-day. The network takes the blame. It's always the network's fault. Knowing that provides some interesting perspective and interesting technologies that we need to bring to bear to reduce what I call our MTTI, our mean time to innocence. If it's always the network's fault, we have to provide tools and technologies to reduce our MTTI, reduce our mean time to innocence, so we can absolutely root cause and troubleshoot where the problem exists. Is it really a network problem or not? And we're actually going to show you how we actually do that. When we can reduce our MTTI, we can also reduce another MTTI, our mean time to innovation. We spend so many of our days and hours, our technicians, our IT resources, in firefighting, in troubleshooting, in chasing these perceived network problems, when in fact they're ghosts. We're chasing ghosts because a lot of issues aren't the network. Networks today, the heritage, the resiliency, the scalability, the performance that are available in today's networks are vast. And so really what we found, and when you really get to it, it's other challenges, it's other applications that are behaving improperly on the network, but who's holding the application providers accountable? We need a way to identify this. Given, again, the infrastructure is the common thread that ties all these things together, that is the perfect place to understand how application traffic is traversing across the network so we could see and take action. Delivery is often disjointed. There's wireless networks, there's wired networks, there's data center, there's campus, there's edge, there's cloud, right? There's a lot of disjointed technologies. How do we pull all this together so that it works and we see it as a system, again, for root cause, and again, understanding the separation between application and the network, because those are two distinct, different capabilities. Another challenge often that we see is, again, in our mission to reduce our MTTI, we can't do that without deep insight and understanding and visibility into the performance of the applications traversing the network, based on time of day, based on device, based on application. We need the ability to understand and get all of this data 100% of the time so we can take proactive actions and measures. And then at the end of the day, the reason this is all important because this impacts ultimately the consumer, the end user, the clinician, the patient who's trying to use the technology. If their experience is bad, they don't know what's under the hood that makes all this technology work. They just care that, hey, I can't get Netflix streaming, or it's slow, I can't connect, or hey, my EMR system is slow. As a clinician, I can't update a patient record. It's slow. Again, assuming it's always the network's fault, and I would argue as a network guy, it's usually not the network's fault. We need to provide the tools and technologies that provide the way to root cause and troubleshoot to, in fact, deliver a consistent user experience. One of the things in my career that I've learned very, very consistently is human nature dictates that all you have to do is deliver an experience, and every single day beyond that first experience, deliver the same experience. We don't expect a better experience the next time we come into a hospital or the next time we go into a restaurant. We expect the same experience. We also don't expect it to be less. We don't expect the next time we go into a hospital to be a worse experience. We expect it to be the same from the last time I was receiving care or giving care and using the technology. So we have to deliver, the technology has to deliver a consistent user experience. That is the bar. And it's our mission every day to deliver that consistency. If it's consistent, again, human expectation is I just expect the same experience the next time. And if we can do that, reduce help desk, no help desk troubleshoot tickets, the experience is consistent, right? These things start to cascade into our ability from transitioning from the firefight to the innovation, that mean time to incident to mean time to innovation. Now I can spend our resources on understanding how can I further extend the technology to do more, to improve operational efficiencies and so forth. So this is the key element of why we're doing all this, is how do we drive that experience? And the first step that I recommend always is define what that experience is. For your interview, your clinicians, your patients, your doctors, the nurses, understand what is the experience expectation that they have, because also human nature dictates, every one of us in this session today, we all have different expectations of what we want out of a network. That is a moving target. What I think is fast, you may think is slow, but the network's delivering the same exact performance, for example. So that's the moving target. We all expect this consistent experience, yet we all have different perspectives and perceptions about what a good experience is, right? So these are some of the challenges that we all, as technologists, have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So let's talk about some of those things. We talked a little bit about this, and we see and hear this every single day. Anytime there's a perceived issue with technology, it's always the network's fault. It's always the network's fault. The blame game happens, and that's never fun in any organization when the blame game happens. So how do we address this? I want to share with you a formula that we've put together on how do we deliver, or how do we measure a quality of experience. We talk about this user experience, delivering a consistent experience, all these, but let's actually see if we can codify it, create a formula around what is quality of experience. So I want to share with you a formula for QoE that we put together here. The first is, should be no surprise to anybody, a very network-centric view of application delivery. That's really the foundation of deliver any digital transformation experience, right? It's about quality of service, availability of the network, performance, bandwidth, latency, network quality, all these things that have been around since the IP network, TCP/IP existed, right? These are, but yet still very important and critical. We have to understand these, we have to measure these, we have to track these so that we can provision the right resources, the right infrastructure to deliver the business service. Now let's take a look at the other perspective. Let's take a look at it through the lens of the consumer, the end user, the healthcare provider, the patient. What do they care about? Everybody in this room, we are all consumers. So we could just look in the mirror and say, well, what do we expect when we receive a service, when we go into a hospital or receive care or any environment? It's about receiving content, the interface by which I'm receiving the content, the usability of it, right? The security, the personal security, our own private confidential records, right? That's what we care. We don't care about the enterprise security, but we care about our personal security, right? The engagement, experiences and expectation, and this is the moving target. Every one of us has a different, based on our experiences, have different expectations of what a good service is. So how do we get our hands around that? That's what we're talking about here. These are measurable elements that we can actually measure and track, which we'll talk about. And then the thing that bridges these two, the network view and the user experience view, the piece that bridges these together is context. This is what gives all this data meaning, right? The conditions by which an application or asset or an IoT device is connected to a network, right? The historical behavior of that device, that asset. Demographics, location, the types of users, the location on where these services. User preference. We can start to understand user behavior, device behavior. One of the biggest challenges with managing IoT, these are machines, these aren't humans. When humans complain, we raise our hand, we send emails, we open trouble help desk tickets. When machines complain, how do they complain? They complain by just ceasing to work, which is no warning, no issue. They just stop working, which could be catastrophic depending on the application of what that machine is actually doing. So headless systems, machine systems, we have to have all of this insight and understanding to make sure, A, that machine is receiving the services it needs to do its job effectively, B, is speaking only the applications that it's required to function. Every IoT device that's coming into the network is a potential security risk, a potential security threat. It's by its nature, every IP device we add to our network, we're inherently increasing our security landscape. We've got to get our hands around that, right? So we can protect and make sure that we can deliver and realize the operational efficiencies that IoT absolutely does bring. The situational awareness, we talked about that. That's one of the comments Gartner made. This is where machine learning starts to come in. When we have context of all this data, we can understand behaviors, we can start to do and leverage the technology to make some proactive changes and actions to adapt and to adopt the environment. And then of course security is every step of the way always paramount in all this. So when you take all of this information, you take this formula, you add these components, the network perspective, the end user, the consumer, whether it's a human or a machine, and then the context around how all of this is being leveraged, you could tie that all together and put that into a dashboard, a quality of experience dashboard. I could do and really look at 4 perspectives. There's, across all these variables, there's very objective measures. An objective measure would be network response time, application response time, network availability, content, applications being consumed. Those are very measurable and objective. There's also a lot of subjectivity. What I think is fast, you think is slow. How do I get my arms around that subjectivity? And I'll share with you how we're going to do that in a moment. There's contextual information. There's behavioral information. We have capabilities where we can solve for 3 out of those 4 variables. Humans are very subjective beasts, right? But if I can solve for 3 out of the 4, I can start to separate the subjectivity of the service I'm delivering versus the objectivity. And if I could deliver that in a report, oh my gosh, now I'm not chasing ghosts, I'm actually chasing whether or not this is a very subjective gut feel kind of thing, or if there's a real technology problem going on. So let's look at that. Let's jump right into that. And by the way, you boil all this data up into a red light, green light, yellow light, into a dashboard. Now I can really understand and prioritize my quality of experience issues. What are the real issues that are creating a poor experience for a much broader group of users versus onesie, twosie. I can start to prioritize where I go and address improving or troubleshooting, again, reducing my MTTI, my mean time to innocence and my mean time to innovation. I know it's going to be difficult for you to see, but this is a dashboard. Just focus on the far right of this chart. This is our application analytics dashboard, and what you're looking here is a stack ranking of application performance as perceived by the network. The network, again, is seeing traffic going to and from source to destination and vice versa. What a great place to measure the total end-to-end round trip time of application. When you look at the top, Skype, there's two columns there. You see two columns of bars. The column on the left, the colored column on the left, is application response time. The colored column on the right is network response time. We can separate the two. They're two independent entities, right? So you can see over time, my network response time is in the green. My application response time is in the red. This is the first step to reducing our MTTI. I have a Skype user or a set of Skype users who are complaining that the network is broken, the network is slow. Well, is it really the network or is it the application? We have the answers here. So this is a stack rank of all the poorly performing applications you could see here. And again, it's a little difficult to see, but you can see the little triangles. The first 4 lines are in the red. We've got some items in the yellow, Pandora streaming, Yahoo, radio streaming's in the yellow, Polycom is in the yellow, and then once you get down the list, we're in the green, right? So this is a stacked rank of the worst performing applications from the perspective of the network. And as you can see, the network, all the lines are in the green. We don't have a network issue. We don't have a network performance problem. For some reason, the behavior of the application is causing a poor user experience, a poor quality of experience. Now, maybe there is another problem. When you think about the interdependencies to deliver a digital service, whether it's music, a video streaming, an EMR record, whatever it is, all the dependencies from authentication to domain name service resolution to all the different components that make up, all of those things have to be running very fast and very efficient to deliver that good quality of experience. Here's a detailed breakdown of some of those components. I've got my LDAP, my Radius, my Kerberos, DHCP, DNS. If any one of these are performing poorly, we have a quality of service, quality of experience problem that we need to address. So again, this is as we start to dig deeper into a troubleshoot, we understand it's not necessarily an application that's performing badly, but there's a network service that is. This is the next step, right? Looking at making sure all my foundational services are operating at efficient. All this stuff bubbles up into that quality of experience dashboard. So, just to summarize, we talked about the mean time to innocence, right, and the importance of it, given that every single problem that we deal with day to day, the knee-jerk reaction is it's always the network's fault. We need to ultimately drive, as I mentioned, to mean time to innovation. When we can reduce our MTTI, we can reduce our mean time to innovation, so we can actually deliver more services and the great technologies that are coming in our environments to drive operational efficiencies and value for our patients and our healthcare givers. So with that, thank you very much for your time and attention. I appreciate it. Thank you.